Hello and welcome to Original Soundchat, where video game music is a work of art. On each episode, it's our goal to help you learn about two soundtracks from the world of games, as well as the people, stories, and critical tracks behind them. My name is Joe DeVader.
And I'm Peter Spezia. We're brought to you by Anonymous Dinosaur and Rhymes with Asia. It's time to appreciate great OSTs and the games they come from without getting too bogged down in music theory. Up first this week for our two games is 2005's Star Fox Assault, the follow-up to a Nintendo 64 classic after a dinosaur deviation, featuring three methods of dispatching a bug-like alien threat.
Following that is yet another trip into the world of Pokémon, this time to go on, of all things, a photo safari, 1999's Pokémon Snap.
That's right, we're rail shooting today. Pew pew, pew pew, as we're on this set path. Not Star Fox 64, Star Fox Assault. But let's be honest, most of the Star Fox Assault soundtrack is based in Star Fox 64, so if you want some of that, here you go. Thank you for those who participated in our No Straight Roads contest. That is all complete. Winners have been contacted. Thank you so much for doing that. We really had a blast with that opportunity presented to us. And we hope to do more things like that, if possible, in the future. So thank you.
Yeah, it was very cool. I've never done anything like it before. Like, it wasn't a sponsored thing, obviously. It was just, I happened to be in the email chain at NWR and was like, hey, we could take that. That sounds cool. But this is the closest I've ever gotten to a sponsored thing on any show that I've ever been on. So, hey, neat.
We'll take it. Joe, how you doing? What are you playing?
I'm doing pretty all right. I have been playing a lot of Spiritfarer. It's very good. I've been playing it on PC because it's on Game Pass. Otherwise, I would have bought it on the Switch. And I might still buy it on the Switch at some point. It's a very good wind-down game. Kind of like Animal Crossing, except if Animal Crossing every few hours was like, now say goodbye to one of your villagers forever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even more like Animal Crossing or Harvest Moon than I figured it would be. Like, there's farming, you can go fishing, there's cooking, there's all sorts of stuff. But the main idea is you are the ferryman of the dead, and you are helping these souls pass on. And so it's very good so far.
Does sound cute and bittersweet. I'm in a funk with games right now. I tried the Avengers demo last weekend, didn't care for it. And then I tried Marvel's Iron Man VR this week. Also didn't like it. I feel like that's a game that's held back by being on the base PlayStation VR unit. It's a game that they want you to play in 360 degrees, ideally. Not great for a wired corded system. They have turn buttons, but that doesn't really fix things. And then even when you're Tony Stark walking on the ground, like, you're looking at points and then pressing a button to move to that point, but it's fade to black, and then it takes a little long to fade back in, and it's just like, oh man, like, it just breaks you out of the experience. And so I just watched the rest of it was like a 2.5 hour game movie. I'm like, all right, well, I've already seen half an hour of this, so I just saw the rest of it. I'm just in a weird funk. I don't get it. Got more things to play though, so we'll keep pressing on.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar position because I wanted to play more than just Spiritfarer, and I just haven't. Nothing really outside of the Smash Bros. Stuff. Nothing appeals to me right now. It's kind of weird.
It happens. It's called being an adult. Anyway, let's talk about some composer follow-up headlines. The composers that we've talked about on the show, they're still doing things. Cool things are happening in their world, and there are video game headlines to go with it, such as the Super Mario 35th anniversary. Finally, the confirmation of the 3D Mario ports to Switch of Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. One of those we've talked about on the show, and one of them may be coming up on the show pretty soon. But it's a neat sort of package, and then you bundle in the weird Nintendo stuff of it's for a limited time only. I agree. My dog's gagging at it. I kind of gag at the practice as well. As long as they can fill it out with, because we'll split them up afterwards. But no, they want to create the mystique of scarcity right now. It's just kind of garbage, but it is what it is. But that's a big thing going on in that Nintendo world right now.
Yeah, man, when I first saw it, I figured it was like, oh, the physical release is limited. All right, whatever. That kind of sucks, but whatever, it's fine. And then it was like, digital also. What are you doing? You can't do that. Who knows? I'm looking forward to it because now streaming Sunshine, when we get to it for Smash-Pieces, which will be my first time ever playing it, by the way.
Yeah, I've never played it either.
It's now going to be less of a pain to stream, and that's because that's like one of the only GameCube games on our list that my roommate doesn't already own on GameCube, weirdly enough. So that's pretty good, and I'm looking forward to replaying Mario 64 again for the billionth time, and hey, Galaxy. I like Galaxy. Galaxy's good.
Love Galaxy. Galaxy was my first 3D Mario game. I got a soft spot for that one.
Meanwhile, PAX Online happens next week. PAX Online is going to be a really weird thing. Basically, if you are not aware of what's happening, they are going to basically run the panels they would usually run at a PAX, but obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic. You can't have PAX right now. That's a bad idea. So what they have done is a bunch of people have pre-recorded their panels, or they might be doing them live. I don't know. Some of them might. We had to pre-record ours. And they will be live streamed on Twitch. So we got some notable ones here. A lot of them having to do with composers that we have covered, but some of them just plugs that, we're involved. Well, not like people we know are involved, at least. Look. So the first one, here's a list of the ones we want to give a shout out to. Do you want to just trade off saying these?
Yeah.
All right. So the first one I want to give a shout out to is 35 Years of Stomps, Ranking Mario's Enemies. That is on Monday, September 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In fact, I think we should just blanket statement. All of these are in Eastern Time. This actually involves Matt, my co-host over at Smash Pieces. He and a bunch of other NWR folks rank every Mario enemy ever, from what Matt has told me about how this panel shook out when they recorded it. It's very funny, and you should definitely check it out.
Yeah, definitely interested. Just so you know, PAX Online runs from the 12th through the 20th. But yeah, definitely important to point out important panels that we think you would be interested in, such as Video Game Music Theory 101, which is also on Monday the 14th, but at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. This features Family Jewels, Insane in the Rain Music, Saab Irene, and 8-Bit Music Theory. Several of those we've highlighted in our fan covers and fan remakes during those parts of the show.
One of them is going to get highlighted this week.
Oh,
hey. All great video game cover artists. After that, we have Maestros and Sirens of Video Game Music. That is on Tuesday, September 17th at 8 a.m. Eastern at PAXEGX.com. Features Gareth Coker and Arilee Brighton, who are there for their work with Ori and the Will of the Wisps, as well as Joris de Man and Julie Elvin from Horizon Forbidden West, and Inon Zur and Mimi Page for Fallout 4.
Yeah, and for Ori and the Blind Forest and Horizon Zero Dawn, we've talked about those composers before. And it seems like, they're doing some extra panels in collaboration with EGX, the usually London, England has a big panel there. So some extra panels there. That one is then being at PAXEGX.com. Back over for some more Nintendo World Report goodness. Interesting because you're involved in this panel. This is Supermarket Nintendo Sweep on Friday, September 18th at 12:15 a.m. Eastern Time. Who better be a night owl for that one, or unless if you're in Europe, maybe you gotta get up really early. This is from Nintendo World Report. You are a competitor in this one, as it's trivia followed by a race through a game. Also features Matt from Smasher Pieces, but you are in this one. Very cool.
Come watch me let Matt down super hard. After that, we have Next Gen Composers Arise. Great name for a panel. That is on Saturday, September 19th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, featuring Sarah Schochner, Gareth Coker, Will Roger, Ludwig Forsell, and Mick Gordon. A really, really good list of all-stars right there, some of which we've talked about and some of which we haven't. I feel like we need to do an episode on Will Roger at some point. That name has come up a few times when I've been speaking to people.
Yeah, so whether it's for some recent Call of Duty work or Mortal Kombat, that's possible. We could try to make that work. But yeah, a lot of great names there for sure. And then finally, Soundtrack Scramble, the Game Music Arrangement Challenge. This is on Saturday the 19th at 9:45 p.m. Eastern Time. A whole bunch of names. Andrew Pralo, Priscilla Snow, Larissa Okada, Hassan Durant, and Joe Sua. But the headliner, Lena Rain, on this panel. That's why matters to the show. It sounds like they're getting like a classic video game piece and like a different style in which to like arrange it in, and they have the whole panel length to work on it and present it at the end. It sounds like a really neat idea.
That sounds super cool, and I think that's the one I'm most interested in on this entire list. I'm more interested in this one than the one that I'm part of. It sounds awesome. And then in non-PAX news, just to give everybody a heads up, Where the Water Tastes Like Wine is free on the Epic Games Store from September 10th to the 17th. That is pretty much, it's free next week. Go get it. Like, free is a pretty good price for Where the Water Tastes Like Wine. I don't know if PC is where I'd personally choose to own it, but if you are at all, again, like I said when we covered it in the episode that I brought it to the table, if your interest was at all piqued by that episode, you should definitely go try out Where the Water Tastes Like Wine, and now you can do it for free.
Absolutely. Let's get to our first game this week, though, in the rail shooter category, so to speak. This is Star Fox Assault, a game that is from my childhood of growing up with my first console, the GameCube, even though I'm of age to should have had consoles younger. I was a late bloomer in the console owning biz. So yeah, Star Fox Assault, the first Star Fox game I played. That's weird. I always thought that it was just Star Fox Assault, flat out. But then seeing a lot of places on the internet put the colon after Star Fox and then Assault. I don't know. A little weird. That kind of threw me off a little bit. Star Fox Assault, released on February 14th, 2005 in North America on Nintendo GameCube. Japan got the game on February 24th, Europe on April 29th, and Australia on June 16th of 2005. The game is developed by Namco and published by Nintendo. It is a third-person action game that involves three main styles of play. You have the classic Star Fox staple of spaceship dogfighting when you're in your Arwing. You also have tank combat in the Landmaster. I have to say that like that.
There's no other way to say it. There's no other way to say it.
And then what seemed to be new for this game, you are on foot as a third-person run-and-gun shooter. Kind of think almost like Ratchet and Clank a little bit, without the crazy flippity-doo dodging, but a similar kind of gameplay feel to that, I would think. So the story of Star Fox Assault. After the defeat of his uncle Andros at the end of Star Fox 64, Andrew Oikony assumes leadership of the planet Venom's remaining troops and begins a rebellion. General Pepper orders an attack on Oikony's forces, hiring the Star Fox team to assist the Cornerian army. During the battle, Oikony is destroyed by an insectoid creature, which attacks the Star Fox team. These creatures are called Aparoids, one of which ravaged the Cornerian fleet 17 years prior. Can Star Fox stop the Aparoids? And how will their rival team, Star Wolf, get in the way? That's literally it. That's the plot. Joe, what are our experiences with Star Fox Assault?
I have none. In fact, I just played my first Star Fox game ever earlier this year with Star Fox 64. It's on the Masterpieces list, though. Assault is our game for Wolf, I think. No, I think it's for... Yeah, it's for Wolf, I believe. I'm kind of looking forward to playing it, even though it's another one that Ben does not own on GameCube, and so it's kind of going to be a pain to stream.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll figure it out. I think maybe I might have played it for like 3 minutes when a friend brought it over at one point, but I don't have a huge amount of experience with either Assault or the Star Fox series in general.
Do you remember the whole thing in Star Fox Adventures where it was like people were dying for a sequel to Star Fox 64, and you open up with that first level and it's perfect. It's perfect Arwing combat. It feels great. It looks great. And then the next level happens and it's like, what?
Oh, it's a Zelda game.
Well, yeah, Adventures was a Zelda game, but Assault at least still has the feel of a Star Fox game, but Fox isn't really meant to go on foot and be all blaster heavy like that. I mean, you gotta think this was the time of Halo. Halo multiplayer was king. And so I always think of Star Fox Assault as like, it's an interesting Star Fox game. It's probably the second best one, I'd say. Some people kind of put it up there like with, oh, well, do you like the more modern feel of Assault, or is there something about the classic original Star Fox on Super Nintendo that really gets to you? So, I mean, people may have their choices. I mean, 64 undeniably the best, but Assault's up there. And then they add this multiplayer component, as did 64, but when you have the option for running and gunning and different weapons and things like that, I always think of it as the GameCube Halo. And if you had people together, you can kind of see how that could happen. Play a multiplayer mode like that if you don't have an Xbox, and you have Star Fox Assault. That's just as good, right? But it's an interesting game. And I think the soundtrack is rather notable, even though a lot of the tunes do borrow from the 64 version and just really punching it up and making it sound great.
I mean, upon listening to some of your tracks, I did know two of them, obviously. One of them because it's a straight up remix of a song from 64, but the other because it's in Smash.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're both in Smash, like straight up, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Star Fox Assault is notable also in the fact that it changed up the Team Star Fox lineup. Peppy Hare was deemed too old, and so he went on to pilot the Great Fox with Rob. To replace him, Crystal. Crystal, who everyone wanted to be in Super Smash Bros. From there on out, and also had a starring role in Star Fox Adventures, the previous GameCube Star Fox game that wasn't really Star Fox because Rare and Dinosaur Planet and the whole history there if you are remotely familiar with it. Tricky from Star Fox Adventures also makes an appearance because you have a level that takes place on Saria. So, it's Fox, it's Falco, it's Slippy, and Crystal. That makes up your fearsome foursome. As you play the game and you ultimately collect all the silver medals throughout the game, the player can unlock the NES port of the scrolling shooter arcade game Xevious as a bonus minigame. Because in case you forgot, this was a Namco-developed project. Apparently, the Japanese version of Star Fox Assault also features the Famicom games Battle City and Star Luster as unlockables. I did not know that. I remember unlocking Xevious. I did do that, but then it's like, okay, what's this? I don't know what a Namco is, as I'm young and new and inexperienced with gaming at the time. The project had a working title of Star Fox Armada, and the game was announced on May 8th, 2002. It had a tentative release date of April 2003 for Japan, and it was announced that it would be developed by the same employees who worked on Ace Combat 2 at Namco. A flying game.
To be fair, that's who you would want to work on a game about flying spaceships.
Yeah.
That sounds like a match made in heaven.
Yeah, and the Arwing stuff is great in this game. It's just everything else is not as good. It's fine. I think it's fun if you're inexperienced with games, but when you compare it to others, not fantastic. The game was originally showed at E3 2003 in a short video montage with gameplay in a first-person perspective. According to the magazine Electronic Gaming Monthly, the video was booed by viewers, and EGM itself said the video was remarkably unimpressive.
Ooh.
But apparently it had a much better showing at E3 2004. EGM said it was so much better. And it was originally planned for a November 2004 release, but it was delayed to February in North America. Yeah, multiplayer's, I think, one of the big things, even more so than its presence in Star Fox 64. Players include the members of the Star Fox team, plus Peppy and Wolf. So you could do that, and you have different missions. You could keep it to dogfights. You could be on the ground. You could switch to landmasters. You could have a mix of all three. You could customize your rules pretty well, from what I remember correctly. But the game was reviewed with mixed reception, with a 67 on Metacritic and 71% on Game Rankings. People liked how it was aimed more at a hardcore crowd than just the Mario players, and it does have a nice orchestrated soundtrack. But the on-ground missions had pretty sloppy control, and some considered the multiplayer to have little lasting value. Quote, playing through the game's opening sequence will rekindle your love for the franchise, only to have it betrayed by the shoddy control and repetitive play of successive levels. Yeah, you go through like these two mini levels kind of combined in the first chapter of the game, and then literally the next thing is you're on the ground, and it's just like, oh. It's not the Zelda Whiplash bad of adventures, I would say, but it's still like, it's different. But yeah, based on those reviews, and at the time there weren't any really big awards for Star Fox Assault. As far as legacy since then, you had 2006's Star Fox Command on DS, and also 2016 Star Fox Zero on Wii U that were new entries, even though it's kind of debatable, I guess, with the plot of Zero being pretty, similar to 64, which was derivative of the original Star Fox. So
from what I hear, Zero is essentially just a remake of 64.
Yeah, with all the gamepad things. But even since then, you also had Star Fox 64 3D on 3DS in 2011, and then Star Fox 2. They decided that, hey, we should probably release this in some capacity. Let's do it on the Super Nintendo Classic in 2017. But nothing has really continued from Assault. Like, Crystal's not the fourth main Star Fox team member. Even in Zero, it's like, yeah, let's bring back Peppy.
Star Fox always seemed like that franchise that Nintendo wants to be bigger than it is. But then they never seem to know what they actually want to do with it. Which, I mean, doesn't, from the outside, and this is just me sitting from the outside. I don't work for Nintendo. I don't control the Star Fox IP. But maybe just make a Star Fox game. Like, just make a game about dogfighting. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, the big space that you could put it in, like with these the worlds that you can create, it sounds like it's ripe for the picking. Just keep it in the Arwing. Like, you'd think that would be the focus, but yeah, we'll see if anything happens in the future with Star Fox. After Zero, I don't know. I don't know if that'll even be one that comes over from Wii U to Switch, as we are in the single digits of notable games still left to be ported from Wii U.
Could it? Like, I feel like there are 3 games that anybody cares about left on Wii U, essentially. One is Xenoblade Chronicles X, which, I mean, yeah, bring that. Do it. But the other 2 are Nintendo Land and Star Fox Zero, and both of those games essentially require the gamepad to function. I don't know if they could make it.
Yeah, it would take some tweaking.
Who knows? Maybe one day.
Maybe indeed. Well, to try to talk about the composer this week, you have many songs from Star Fox 64, and those were composed by Koji Kondo and Hajime Wakai. But you had a couple Namco composers work on this project to try to rearrange those into a more orchestral vibe, but then also to fill out the game with other different new pieces of music and things like that. It was a duo of Yoshie Arakawa and Yoshinori Kawamoto. So his name being listed first, I'm like, yeah, let's talk about Yoshie Arakawa this week. He is also known as Strong Yoshie. He's a composer for Namco. And that's about it that exists about him on the internet. Like, no interviews. Even the Lilat Wars Wikia notes for Yoshie Arakawa. He composed on Star Fox Assault with Yoshinori Kawamoto. That's literally it. Like, oh, thanks. Good. I'm glad you needed a page for him then.
I got a little bit more info on my person, but not much more, unfortunately.
It's tough when you come across it like that. Some games that he seemed to work on for composition, though, include Tekken 2 and 3, Xevious 3D/G+, of course, Star Fox Assault, Mario Kart GP and GP2, Flash Focus Vision Training in Minutes a Day, and Pac-Man Championship Edition. Those are all according to Moby Games. So yeah, definitely a Namco composer. As far as historical development research, I wish there was more on this game, because this is orchestration on the GameCube. I always thought when I was younger, it was just like, oh, these are like really good, maybe orchestral sounding MIDIs. And that's because of the compression, I think, to get it down to like the 1.5 gigabytes that the GameCube mini discs have as far as storage goes. The soundtrack is performed by the Tokyo New City Orchestra. I always thought that Super Mario Galaxy was like the first big Nintendo orchestra soundtrack for a game.
Yeah, I thought so too.
But it seems like it might be this one.
What a weird place for it to be.
I know, and I just wish there were more information about it. Honestly, if it's that historic. But anyway, what does this sound like? Let's get into the 5 critical tracks for Star Fox Assault, starting with Main Menu. You would think I would do some sort of title theme version of the Star Fox theme. The dum 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 da 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 bum 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 bum. And it's got that. This game has that, trust me. And even people think it's like, oh, it's the best arrangement of that classic theme from Koji Kondo. No, this one I feel is more unique and establishing to the Star Fox Assault experience, especially if you're, going through the menu and you're trying to set up a multiplayer game. Like, this song is pretty important, and I feel like it adds even more to the orchestral sound. Like, you definitely have orchestral instruments here, but there are also some electronic instruments and some kind of drum kit going in addition to this. But yeah, I think it makes for a really good opening impression of what this soundtrack can sound like, and I think it only gets better from there.
Honestly, this song's kind of a jam, though. Like, it's really groovy. Not gonna lie. It's not exactly what I would expect from a Star Fox game, but I don't know why I wouldn't. I mean, I guess it's because I'm used to it being faux orchestrated, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even in 64, it's definitely going for an orchestrated vibe, even if it's blatantly a MIDI. So then you get this sort of almost hip-hop, almost,
yeah,
vibe to this song, and it kind of catches me off guard, but also it's really good.
Someone sample this for a rap song, please. That would be
I feel
great.
like we say that a lot.
I mean, it can work, and some people do. Some people obviously do with game music. Number 2 on the Critical 5. I think it gets no better on the soundtrack than Space Battleground. So you get the mission introduction music, and it's that same kind of low, unsettling vibe that 64 has had, and you're ready. Mission start, first mission, and it's this. It's the theme for the Oikini's Fleet section of the game, which is the first half of the first of 10 missions. So, very first impression you're hit with gameplay, once the control's in your hands, and it's hitting you with this theme. Look, we'll point out how several of the songs are basically orchestrated versions of 64 themes from Star Fox 64, but this one's totally original. So this is, fully Arakawa and Kawamoto working on this one, it sounds like. And it's amazing. I think it's great how it really captures that same sort of spirit as Star Fox 64's tracks. But, man, it's one all its own. It's one that got carried over into Super Smash Brothers. Man, what a song. So good.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it because it's in Smash. And I think I kind of assumed that was a remix in Smash. I don't know why I assumed that. I could easily tell it wasn't because it wouldn't be labeled as such in Smash. But I've kind of just gone until now thinking it was. And it might be one of my favorite of the Star Fox themes in Smash in general. Mm-hmm. Like, this song is really good. I could picture this song being in, like, I'm one of the weird people that thinks Star Fox would make an incredible animated film, personally.
Oh, yeah.
And I could easily see this being in said film. Like, it's that good. I really, really like this song, honestly.
Yeah, this one is great for sure. And for what it's worth, I'll just spoil it up here. Ficina, the Breakthrough the Ice track, which also is in Super Smash Bros., starting with Brawl, carried over along from this soundtrack. Not on the Critical 5 or the cutting room floor here. I'm not as big of a fan. And that's one where it's like, that's an orchestration of a 64 theme. But also, it sounds good. All these sound good when you actually put an orchestra behind it. Sounds very good, but for being an original theme, Space Battleground here, Oikini's Fleet, oh man, it's a banger. Number 3 on the Critical 5, this is Hostiles Revisited. This is the theme for Sargasso, and it's the first half of Mission 3. This was a mission where you're in this, like, space prison thing, like this sort of floating space ship, I guess you can say, and you're infiltrating on foot as Fox, but your friends are kind of circling outside in their Arwings and occasionally coming under attack. And as you make progress through the mission on foot, some of your friends will be like, help! I need help out here. So you got to run back to your R-Wing, go out there, and you're getting some R-Wing action before you then land back and you have to continue. And you may have to go back. So it's a good mission that's like a combination of the on-foot stuff and the R-Wing stuff. And it's my favorite mission to play. I remember playing this mission so much because I really enjoyed it. And then also the end of the mission is great for those that have played the game before. But this theme was originally the Sector Y and Solar theme, composed by Hajime Wakai in Star Fox 64. And man, from the Jaws-like lower brass, the bum 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 bum, the trumpet comes in the da 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 da. It builds up to string flourishes and then gets like a quieter part. This track goes places, and I feel like for the variety in the piece, it's a good one. It's not one of the classic Star Fox themes, but I really like this piece. A lot of the YouTube comments are like, "Oh my, this level so good," and the song accompanies it so well.
Yeah, I think it's the lower brass that really makes this song. For me, I don't know. I think I prefer Space Battleground overall, but I don't know. It sounds neat. I like this song.
Yeah, it's a good one. Number 4 on the Critical 5. This is Theme of Starwolf. So how does that mission 3 end? Oh, it's a run-in with Starwolf. And so then you have your first actual dogfight in the game to take out the different members of Starwolf. I mean, even with Panther Caruso added to Starwolf, and you're like, who's this guy? But maybe he contributes to the almost Spanish flair in this song. It may sound like I'm making fun of it, but honestly, this version of Starwolf's theme is the best version of this song ever, and you can take that to the bank. I think, this version was also in Smash, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, honestly, because it's the best. For me, being introduced to this theme with this song and then going back to the 64 version, it's like, oh, well, it's faster in 64, but it's not that good. You get this trumpet and flute melody that eventually yields to strings in this one. That trumpet, oh man, this is clearly the best version of this theme.
I disagree.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong.
I like every part of the song until the trumpet comes in, and I don't know why. Because the first time I heard the song was in Brawl. I like the remix, the actual remix of the 64 version in Brawl way more. I think I prefer the faster version. I don't know what it is about the trumpet that I just don't really like. Everything else about this theme, the strings, oh, so good. The flute, fantastic. And then the trumpet comes in and I'm like, I'm good.
It's a little muted. I get it. But I'm just glad to know that the internet is on my side with this one. I'll take it. Let's wrap up the Critical 5 with Theme of Star Fox versus Mix. I had to bring this one up because it's important to the multiplayer. And if you spent game nights like me with your friends and playing that Halo for GameCube, you're familiar with this tune. It is a pretty intense version that kind of plays off the main Star Fox theme, kind of really amps it up. But this is because when you're in multiplayer, this is game point. Like, you're in the deciding moment of the match, and so the intensity must go way up. I feel like I had to throw it in here. It's not necessarily the best. I could have thrown in another great orchestrated, version of a track from 64 or something like that. But for those that love and miss the multiplayer, even though it wasn't that great, this was a must for the Critical 5.
I think that's good reasoning overall. If the multiplayer was a big part of your experience, including a song specific to the multiplayer seems, that logic works out for me. I think this is a pretty good song, honestly.
Yeah, and it gets that theme of Star Fox in there one way or the other. Let me mention a couple songs here, though, on the cutting room floor. One of these being Frontier Serenade. Those familiar with Star Fox 64's soundtrack would note that, yes, this is the theme for Katina. Katina is Mission 2 in Star Fox Assault, so it is the first experience with getting on foot as Fox. And so it is rather memorable in that way. That said, the Katina theme originally composed by Hajime Wakai. So yeah, I think we didn't include it in the clip, but it starts great with this big fanfare. Dun, 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 dun. And like it just sounds so much better compared to that 64 version. Though I wanted to put this part of the clip in here because listening to it again, I was reminded of what some people in the YouTube comments referred to as the bus horn. And near the end of the clip, there, as you're building the crescendo, there's this note that comes in that like just sounds flat. And it sounds like a honk kind of coming in. And so people in the YouTube comments like hit a stir with me where like I've thought this exact same thing. And it just brought back memories of like, it just feels like a bus plowing through the piece like,
it kind of sounds like a goose dying a little bit.
Yeah.
What a weird thing to throw in.
It's a great piece, but man, being reminded of that, like, oh, it's got to be mentioned somewhere. I got to put this in here. The other one on my cutting room floor is Strategy to Retake the Capital. Wordy title aside, yes, this is the Corneria theme from Star Fox 64, originally composed by Hajime Wakai. But this is mission 7 in the game, 7 of 10. So you're going pretty deep into the game with this one, as the Aparoids have taken over Corneria. You gotta take it back. And it's interesting to go back to listen to the 64 version of Corneria, how it just like it kind of lacks the depth and the breadth of the overall possible sound. So it's just amazing to hear it arranged this way. I feel like it was worth the inclusion just for that. Like, go listen to the original if you're ever so inclined. Or at least just be confident in knowing that like this is among the best sounding versions of these themes that's ever been.
A thing I see a lot on social media nowadays, which is kind of true, is that people are trying to stop fans from like, don't get into the mindset of like everything should be orchestrated. If it's not orchestrated, it's not worth it. Which is not true. Obviously, not every video game soundtrack would work great orchestrated. But the thing you got to look at when looking at older games is, was the original intention of the soundtrack to sound as orchestrated as humanly possible at the time? And Star Fox 64, the answer is yes. It was. And so when it gets orchestrated for a game like this, it sounds really good.
So absolutely, yeah. Kudos to Yoshie Arakawa, even though I wish I could find more information about him, as well as Yoshinori Kawamoto. I mean, in addition to the new songs that they contributed to the game, these arrangements of the Kondo and Wakai classics from Star Fox 64 sound great. And I'm just amazed that yeah, wow, there was orchestration in a Nintendo game in 2005. That kind of blows my mind a little bit. But what will I never forget about Star Fox Assault? Yeah, the GameCube Halo. Multiplayer fun. If you wanted to mix up from Super Smash Brothers, it was Star Fox Assault, baby. At least it was for me. And so it was my first Star Fox game. So when I went back and played 64 for the first time, I was real bad at it. Because I'm like, where's the on foot parts? I was good at that. Oh, what I knew at the time was so little. Yeah, that's what the game means to me. I look forward to you being able to eventually play it, though, for Smasterpieces.
Yeah, I am hoping that I'll be able to play it pretty easily. I still don't really have a plan for when we get there.
Or I can send you my disc, but it won't be through the USPS, because, oh boy.
Well, it's still going to be like a year and a half before we get to that, at least. Well, maybe a year. No, it won't take over a year. I think sometime in 2021 will probably be where we hit Star Fox. I'm thinking real optimistically here. But I am looking forward to giving this game a shot. Star Fox has had a rough go of it.
Yeah.
Over the years.
Yeah. Well, this was when the franchise still had possibilities, I guess. But yeah, let me know, and I just might hook you up with a version of the game.
We'll have to see. Man, much can change in that time.
So, to transition to our next game, we talk about a fan remix, a fan cover, whether it's on OC Remix, YouTube, wherever. On YouTube, the channel DS Music. Maybe it's for his initials. I don't think it was about Nintendo DS Music. He did a piano cover of Space Battleground. It sounds really good. He rushes a little bit, but it sounds really good. And yeah, Space Battleground, it's the theme for this game that you really got to point out. So please enjoy that. We'll be right back.
Welcome back.
Do 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 do.
I was so excited that I was going second this week because of that specific joke.
I gotta feel like you gotta channel Professor Oak a little bit more though. Welcome back.
I tried. That's the best Professor Oak I got. You have a way better Professor Oak than I do, honestly.
Okay.
Let's talk about Pokémon Snap. Pokémon Snap was originally released for the Nintendo 64 on March 21st, 1999 in Japan, and June 30th, 1999 in North America. Australia and Europe would follow on March 23rd and September 15th, 2000, respectively. It was developed by HAL Laboratory, and it was published by Nintendo. It is another Pokemon spin-off title, the second one we've talked about, but the other one being Pokken Tournament. Back on episode 42, but we have talked about a fair amount of regular Pokemon games on this show, including Diamond and Pearl on episode 19, Red and Blue on episode 42, and Pokemon Crystal on episode 55. Those all seem so long ago.
It does, but at the same time, we're probably also going to get to another one by the end of the year.
Yeah, we sure will. And then next year will be more Pokemon. Who knows? This is, though, I think notable for being our first, and honestly probably our only, Pokemon game that is explicitly based on the anime, more so than the games. Like, this one is trenched firmly in the anime, which that anime had begun airing in Japan in 1997, but had been blowing the franchise up into a phenomenon-level event for only about half a year in America, where it started airing in September of 1998. That both seems like ancient history, and also like it happened yesterday.
Time is a weird thing.
Yeah, I don't know how else to explain it.
Like, I remember watching those early episodes as a kid.
Yeah, same.
Wow.
It's a bygone era. Back in the... We've said this every time we've covered a game from back in this era. I'm pretty sure we said it a lot during Red and Blue. Pokemon was everywhere at that point. It was inescapable. It was actually a phenomenon, the level of which I don't think we have ever seen since or ever will see again.
Yeah, you think Fortnite's everywhere? Like, no, not even 10%.
Yeah, Fortnite and Minecraft are probably the closest anything's ever come, and neither of them even hold a candle to how crazy Pokemon was in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was unavoidable.
Well, because think about it. I mean, nowadays we have, media on demand everywhere, and attentions are divided in so many places. The choices are everywhere. So society at large can't necessarily fixate on one thing. This was not the case in 1998.
Mm-hmm. The stars were aligned in just the right way to give Pokemon, like, the ultimate foothold. And it's still the highest grossing media franchise in the world. Still, to this day.
Yep.
So, in Pokemon Snap specifically, you take control of Todd Snap, a great name, a young wildlife photographer who has been summoned to the creatively named Pokémon Island by Professor Oak. Pokémon Island is a place without humans, though there's plenty of evidence that, like, humans used to live there. Like, there's an abandoned power plant. It's pretty obvious humans once lived on this island. Where did they go? That's kind of a dire thought. And Pokemon on the island live relatively undisturbed in a variety of landscapes, such as mountains, rivers, caves, and volcanoes. The first time many of these Pokemon were ever rendered in 3D, by the way. Like, most of them.
Yeah.
Because this game predates Pokemon Stadium by 1 month. Pokemon Stadium would release in Japan in April of 1999. So 1 month. For 1 month, these were the first 3D models of these Pokemon ever made. That's really neat, honestly.
If you wanted to see Pikachu with polygons, there you go.
Man, think of that. Think of that now. Now that Pokemon is just 3D all the time. New Pokemon get to be in 3D from day one.
Wow.
How far we have come.
It makes you appreciate those different artist renditions of what modern day Pokemon would be like in those Game Boy sprite versions.
Yeah. Honestly, I love it when people take like modern Pokemon and put them into retro style sprites. It's one of my favorite things. So Oak wants Todd to take pictures of every Pokemon that resides on the island in order for Oak to use them while presenting his scientific findings. That is literally the whole reasoning for why you're here, I guess. What scientific findings? I don't know. Bulbasaur looks like this. Here's a picture of a Bulbasaur. To do this, Oak provides Todd with an autonomous buggy called the 01 that moves along a predetermined track, and also provides him with things like apples to feed the Pokemon. Oh, sorry. Did I say apples? I meant to say Pokemon food.
It's apples.
The game calls it Pokemon food when they are clearly apples. And I genuinely don't understand why that's the case.
Maybe the difference is the bonking sound that they make when you hit Pokemon with it.
Maybe. He also gives you pester balls to throw at Pokemon to get their attention or agitate them. Balls filled with poison. Like, they're filled with poison, right? It's purple cloud that's filled with poison.
It's a purple gas. Yeah, it's gotta be.
And he also gives you a Pokeflute, which you can use to wake up sleeping Pokemon or cause them to dance, or both in one case. Pokemon Snap is, believe it or not, as we alluded to at the start of the show, a rail shooter, where instead of shooting at things, you are taking pictures, and that's pretty much the entire game. Once you have completed a course, Oak will then judge the photos you choose to send him, and he judges them based on 3 criteria. First is size. How close were you when you took the photo? How much of the photo does the Pokemon take up? Pose. Are they doing something interesting, such as maybe using an attack, or dancing, or standing on a certain thing, like a surfboard or something like that? And framing. Oak knows nothing of the rule of thirds. It does not exist in the Pokemon world, so this one is purely, is the Pokemon in the direct center of the frame, though it has some weird methods of figuring that out, because when I streamed it for Smasherpieces earlier this year, I took a picture of a Meowth, and the Meowth was taking up pretty much the whole left side of the picture, but his foot was stretched out and touching the center of the picture, so I got points for it being in the center of the frame. That is my favorite thing about Pokemon Snap, is during the Smasherpieces episode, or during his stream at least, when Matt just started shouting about, like, that's not how the rule of thirds works. That's not how good framing of photographs works. No.
I agree. As a professional photographer and videographer, it also drives me a little nuts when I do subsequent replays. So let's explain what the rule of thirds is for those that don't know out there. If you're like, what are you guys talking about? Imagine your frame, whether it's 4x3 or 16x9, your video screen. If you had to make 2 vertical lines that would break the screen up into 3 chunks, 3 equal chunks, and 2 horizontal lines, which would also break that part of the screen up into 3 equal chunks. This is what we mean by the rule of thirds, because these lines are where the human eyes generally naturally gravitate towards. It's why when you're seeing frames of people like talking on camera or things like that, their eye is generally lined up with that top horizontal line that breaks up that rule of thirds, because you're naturally drawn to the eyes. Similarly, if you're like doing an interview setting and, you know, a person's like kind of on one side of the camera and talking essentially to like the other side of the frame in a way, it's also called talking space, but it's because your eyes are kind of drawn to that, you know, vertical line, essentially, whichever side they're on, and also their eyes on that horizontal line. So it's just there you go. Photography 101 there. That's the rule of thirds. Imagine your two horizontal lines, your two vertical lines, each breaking up the screen, the frame, into their equal parts. And that's kind of where you want things to be lined up, generally for the maximum artistic effect.
But now screw all that. Center of the frame.
Center.
Direct center.
You were close.
Based on these criteria, each photo is given a score, which is then added to your overall game score, because this is a score attack game. Did you know that? And the goal of the game is to take a picture of every Pokemon that resides on the island to add them to Professor Oak's Pokemon report. This is where I will ask, as you have already alluded to, what are our experiences with Pokemon Snap?
Love this game, you know, except when it's breaking those photography rules because of programming simplicity. You know, this game is so easy, so simple, can be completed so quickly. Anyone who listened to your Masterpieces episode would know it's like 2 hours max to 100% complete the game.
Yeah.
As long as you know what you're doing. And there are a lot of weird tricks. It was definitely a time of a playground, you know, discussion. And, oh, did you know if you did this at this time, you could cause this to happen and it would cause this? Like,
getting a Gyarados is the most playground thing ever.
I would also argue Muck.
Muck is absolutely one of them, yes.
So aggravating, so annoying. But it's a game like that. You got to know all the little tips and tricks, and it's simple, and it creates some great little moments. Like, what photos do you remember taking and being really memorable? Because I always seem to come across coughings in the cave. You catch them as they're expelling their gas, and it looks like they're farting. You got to get the classic Meowth making the funny face in the beach. There's a whole bunch of them. For whatever reason, like the Charizard at the end of Volcano, when it's like expelling its lava, you think it'd make for a great pose, and no, Oak hates it.
I remember one, and luckily the game has like a feature where you can put your pictures that you like, but Oak might not necessarily like them. But like, this one's for me.
Yes, thank goodness.
The only one that I added to that album during my most recent replay for Masterpieces was I got a picture of an Eevee while its eyes were like half closed. And it looked so funny. And I still don't remember why it was so funny. But if you go watch my stream, the VOD is up on YouTube. Like, it was just such a funny picture, and I absolutely adored it. That's the most memorable now. That was the first time I had replayed Snap in probably 5 or 6 years. Maybe a little longer than that. Outside of that, I think I replayed it once as an adult, and then as a kid I played it all the time. It was one of the 64 games that we owned, and absolutely adored it. I'm pretty sure this is probably the first game I ever 100% completed, because like you said,
yeah,
2 hours and you got the whole game. It is short.
Yeah, I know. I played it immensely on Wii Virtual Console.
Yeah, Wii U Virtual Console is where I ended up playing it here, but I still own a physical 64 cartridge of Pokemon Snap. It's sitting out in my living room right now.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I even remember for the Wii Virtual Console, like, you could take some of your photos and then post to your, like, the message board that you had on the home menu of the Wii. That was an interesting little feature. Yeah. Huh.
And obviously then Miiverse, you could post them on Miiverse, but you could post any screen cap on Miiverse.
Yeah.
And yeah, most recent playthrough for Smash Bros. Was on Wii U Virtual Console because I can't stream from a Nintendo 64, so out of necessity. But there are places you can go. You can go play this game right now. And I mean, if you got a couple hours to kill, there are worse things you could do. I'm not gonna say that anybody should dash out to play this game right now, but I mean, if you got a couple hours. But this game's development history is very fun. It's one of the main reasons I wanted to talk about this game on the show. I also kind of like the soundtrack, and I wish I knew more about the composer, but this development story is a lot of fun. So, as is the case with essentially every Nintendo 64 game from 1999 until the end of the console's life cycle, Pokémon Snap began life as a game for the, everybody say it together, N64DD. But more interestingly than that, Pokémon Snap did not start life as a Pokémon game. It began life sometime around 1995 as a game called Jack and the Beanstalk, which was an N64 DD game that would have had something to do with the famous fairy tale of Jack and the Beanstalk. But we really don't know what. No screenshots or footage of this game have ever been seen by anybody outside of HAL or Nintendo. It's never been leaked. I don't even think in some of the big recent leaks, I don't think anything came out of that with this game, which is nuts to think about. According to some interviews, though, it would have involved planting seeds and watching them grow in real time using the DD's internal clock. And some people speculate that some of these mechanics were moved over to Earthbound 64 before that game also got just straight up canceled. But that's really as much as we know. Even after the game had moved to being a Pokemon game, though, you can still see evidence of the Jack and Beans original concept because the development team, seen in the opening credits and closing credits of the game, is listed as Jack and Beans.
Mm-hmm.
That's neat. So while the game had been in development a couple years, they were starting to have second thoughts about the concept. It wasn't really clear what would be motivating people to play it because from what we've gathered from interviews with people like Satoru Iwata, who was involved in the development in like a producer's role, the game was essentially growing something and taking pictures of it. And that was the whole game. And they kind of were realizing this game's not very fun to play. We don't know what is going to keep players playing, essentially. So that got them to think, like, what would feel fun to take pictures of? What would feel more fun than literally watching grass grow? Coincidentally, at the same time, Pokemon Red and Green had just released in Japan and were doing pretty well alongside the anime and trading card game that had also recently started releasing. And so, with that turning into a nationwide phenomenon in Japan and showing signs that it was about to spread to the rest of the world as well, the team at HAL saw an opportunity. And the concept was then immediately transitioned into a Pokemon game, according to Iwata, rather forcefully, honestly. The lead character designer, Masanobu Yamamoto, was at first very unhappy about this change. It meant that most of his work would be scrapped completely. But he eventually warmed up to the idea. He thinks that it was a very smart decision. Quote, adopting the Pokemon world clarified what we should do and the direction we should head. And I came to like Pokemon, so I felt like that had saved us. Essentially, him saying like it was either switch to Pokemon or the game was probably going to get canceled.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly. And yeah, you better come to like Pokemon if you work on it like that. Implying then that he did not before.
There's a very, very early video of this game I was not aware of until doing research for this. It shows a Savannah style map, basically. I guess it was like the first time anybody's ever saw footage of this game. And it's a track that is not in the final game. And also, Ekans appears in this level, while Ekans does not appear in the final game, which is bad for a very specific reason that we will get to in a little bit. The game was officially moved off the DD in January of 1999, or at least officially announced to have moved off the DD, and then 2 months later, it released. And upon release, the game was received quite well. It currently sits at a 77 on Metacritic. It was praised for its simplicity and kid-friendliness, but a lot of the criticism was also levied at the game's short length. Like we said, it can be 100% completed in 2 hours. You will have seen everything the game has to offer, as well as the fact that not all Pokemon are present, which that's fair. Only 63 of the original 151 Pokemon. If they had not cut Ekans, it would have been 64.
Aww.
Y'all had one job.
Have 64 Pokemon on the 64.
If you can't have all 151, then you at least need 64 to make it thematically appropriate. Which it seems like that was their original plan, and then Ekans just didn't make it into the final game for some reason. Despite obviously having a 3D model and animation, like it's animated in the video if you watch it. So, by the end of the year, the game had sold over 1.5 million copies in the US alone. So that's not even counting how well it sold in Japan. Publications like IGN attributed this mainly to, quote, well-targeted promotions. And boy, were there some well-targeted promotions involved with this game. For instance, in Japan, a deal was made between Nintendo and the convenience store chain Lawson, where Lawson was given kiosks that would allow players to bring in their cartridge in order to print their photos as stickers. Those of us in the US might remember that a very similar deal was made in America with the video rental chain Blockbuster, where you could take your cartridge into a Blockbuster, you could stick it in this machine, and you could print out your pictures on little stickers. It's one of the most famous aspects of this game and when it came out.
It's also a good indication of how old you are if you remember such things existing.
Yeah, isn't that like the most dated thing you could possibly talk about? You remember when you could take your Nintendo 64 cartridge into a Blockbuster to print out stickers for Pokémon Snap?
I mean, it's up there, yeah.
Blockbuster also hosted a Take Your Best Shot contest where players could submit their photos to Nintendo, with the best photo winning a trip to Australia. I believe it was a trip for 4, a family trip for 4, all expenses paid to Australia. Runner-ups won a digital camera and $100, and even lower runner-ups, I don't know what to call that third tier. They won a Game Boy Color that came with Pokemon Yellow. It was a yellow Game Boy Color that came with Pokemon Yellow. Nintendo also partnered with the company LodgeNet to put Pokemon Snap in more than 86,000 hotels just in time for the holidays. This is back in the days when hotels would sometimes have those consoles where you could pay to rent a game. And I guess Pokemon Snap was heavily put on the list of those, I guess. I don't know. And Todd Snap also appeared in a few episodes of the anime shortly before the game's release in Japan. So they marketed the hell out of this game. And it really, really, really worked out. This game sold like crazy, and there's a reason people still remember it now. They remember it a little more fondly than a few of the other Pokemon spin-offs of the time.
Or the camera-like games since.
Yeah, which Pokemon Snap is largely considered to have been an inspiration for many other games that involve similar photography mechanics, including titles like Africa, Endless Ocean, Dead Rising, and Beyond Good and Evil were listed on the Wikipedia article. Which I'm going to doubt that Pokemon Snap was a massive inspiration for Dead Rising, of all things. But you never know. Stranger things have happened.
I mean, getting the rankings for how good your picture is, there's something there.
All Pokemon Snap was missing was text that shouts, "Sexy!" The game was re-released through Virtual Console on both Wii and Wii U, but what fans really wanted, what they had been clamoring for years, was a sequel. It was asked for so heavily that Junichi Masuda even at one point had to say that he also wanted a sequel, and that Game Freak would not stop Nintendo from making one happen. It just never did. But then, out of nowhere, as if summoned by a podcast episode talking about Pokémon Snap that was recorded the day before this announcement, new Pokémon Snap was officially announced for Nintendo Switch and is slated to release sometime in 2021, I believe. And at last, a sequel has come to be. We don't know a lot about it. I believe Bandai Namco is making it, which is another connection. There you go. But that's pretty much all we have outside of a scant teaser trailer. But it's coming. They're finally making another Pokemon Snap. We're finally going to get one.
One of the best mornings in recent memory. I remember being out in the middle of nowhere and getting that on my phone. So good. And yeah, for you guys to call it on that Smash Your Pieces episode. Oh my gosh.
We did the opposite of call it. I said the words, there will never be a Pokemon Snap 2.
Well, exactly. But you, as you said, you willed it into existence.
Yeah, I like to believe that it is specifically our doing that game got announced. But now, let's talk about the composer behind Pokémon Snap, the little I was able to find. Her name is Ikuko Mimori, and like I said, not a lot on her. I know that she worked at IREM from 1986 to 1994, when she left to join Koei, and then she left Koei in 1996 to join HAL, and then she left HAL in 1999, and then it's very unclear where she went from there. Some sources I found that did not source any actual information or list any games claim that she's at ArcSys now, or at least that she was at ArcSys for some period of time. But I can't find any evidence that she is still there or where she would be. A source that I did find claimed that her website had been under construction since 2010, but not only did they not link to this website, I could not find it even as I searched for it myself. So, unfortunate. In terms of games she's worked on, according to Moby Games, she's not credited on a ton of stuff. A game called Spartan X2 that I'm not familiar with. She did sound effects on the game Metal Storm. One of her more famous contributions, I guess, is for the game R-Type 3, The Third Lightning. And then obviously she worked on Pokemon Snap. Her music has been featured on various R-Type compilation albums, but it was very unclear whether or not these are remixes or rearrangements that she did, or if she was just being credited because she was the original composer. But that's, unfortunately, all I could find on Miss Mimori, which, I mean, is better than absolutely nothing. But in terms of historical development research, soundtrack was released by Mimori herself on her website shortly after the game's release, which I've never heard of a Nintendo-based game that did that, ever. Like, she apparently just posted the MP3s on her website for free download. But she even included 2 cut songs that weren't in the final product. One was a stage theme called Fantastic Horror, which people theorize was potentially for a ghost-themed stage. Don't know why it was cut. A lot of people like to joke because there were 3 ghost-type Pokemon in existence at that time, and what else would you have put in that level? Maybe a Zubat or 2? I don't know.
Cave works pretty well in that regard.
Yeah, I think Cave Cave and the Power Plant work fine for where the ghosts are. But there's also one called Horror Boss Theme, which Mimori says was for a boss fight that was cut from the game. There was a boss fight in Pokemon Snap at one point.
My gosh, I can only imagine.
A lot of people theorize it was probably gonna be the Marowak ghost from Red and Blue.
Sure.
That makes sense. What would that have looked like?
You gotta snap it enough times as it chucks bones at your 0-1. You snap it enough times to damage it before it, breaks, out of the way and lets you continue. I don't know. That's really interesting to think about.
Like, I guess that'd just be a lot like Fatal Frame? I don't know. That's bizarre. I had no idea that existed. And you can hear both of these tracks, by the way. They're out there on the internet. Like, she posted them for download. The soundtrack also appears to have been released on vinyl at some point somewhere. Because I was able to find buy links for that. It costs like $150 though, or more. So I'm going to assume it's out of print and is probably rare. And as much as I like this game, this is not a soundtrack I think I would rush to own on vinyl. But let's talk about that soundtrack, and let's talk about the 5 critical tracks, starting with the first critical track. There's really nowhere else to start than the title screen. Bam, you're here. It's time to take some photos.
Yeah, man, this starts off immediately. Usually in the game with like photo shutter clicks as well.
Yeah. It's just a very sudden in-your-face intro to you're playing Pokémon Snap now, baby. It has that island flavor. I really, really like the island flavor. I think the title screen is very fun for Pokémon Snap. It's nothing fancy, but it's very colorful and nice and fun to look at. I like the pan flute, though I guess in context of the Pokemon world, it's probably a Poke Flute, which is kind of funny to think about. They have an entire instrument that we don't. And honestly, I think this is a pretty catchy tune and a nice little sudden short intro piece to the game.
Yeah, it's got to be here. Every time you boot up the game, it's there right in your face and ready to get you going in that mindset. It's definitely a necessary one.
From there, let's move on to critical track number 2. It's Professor Oak's Lab. Dun 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 dun. Welcome back. Like, am I the only one that inserts those lyrics every time I hear this song?
No, you're not alone. I mean, we sang it at the beginning of this whole section. Like, obviously it was going to be here.
This is like the main menu of the game. And then you go to the level select and that's a different song and options are a different song and everything. But you do keep coming back to this spot over and over again. I don't think it's a particularly interesting piece, but the fact that that's the song we sang at the beginning of this section speaks for the fact that it's one of the more memorable earworms on this soundtrack. It was between this and the music that plays during Professor Oak's check.
Yeah.
Like the dun 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 dun. But I think this one, I think this one stands out a little bit more ever so slightly. Again, it's the one we sang at the start of this section of the show. That says something.
Yeah, it definitely sticks with you after all these years. That is absolutely for sure.
Following that, let's get into a couple of stage themes. The first being Beach. This one's mainly notable because it's the first stage of the game. This is where you're going to learn how to play Pokémon Snap. It is a beach stage. Whoa. Novel concept. And it's got this really relaxing vibe to it, honestly. This fun steel drum melody and this wave soundscape going on in the background. it's just, it's got a really nice sort of lounging on the beach theme to it. And honestly, I think the beach is the main level that people think about when they think of Pokemon Snap. Like, it's the first stage that comes to mind, at least for me. Mainly because it's the first stage in the game, so obviously that's the one you connect to immediately. But also you can put Pikachu on a surfboard, which I think might predate Pokemon. No, it wouldn't predate Pokemon Yellow, but like is a Yellow reference, obviously.
Yeah, big callback. And then how you can have special Pikachus on each stage. I mean, that's always a classic too. Yeah, this one had to be here again. It's the first one. I can like almost hear the Pidgeys sound in my head as this is playing. Like, or you got some of the other ones, like the Doduo that crosses your path at the beginning. Like, it's just being a little jerk like that. Like, yeah, there's so many great memories, and it's the perfect, lighthearted, but really mood-setting piece to start the game.
Yeah, I think it really puts you in the mindset that Pokemon Snap wants you to be in, which this is not a game that is supposed to be like fast-paced, action all the time. You're just taking some pictures.
It's fun.
Speaking of fun, let's move on to critical track number 4, Valley. This is the music for the final real stage of Pokemon Snap. Rainbow Cloud barely counts as a stage. Let's be real.
It's dumb.
It's not a good level. We'll talk more about that in the next track, but I think that Valley is the best track in the game. Hands down. Like, it's got some really cool Ennio Morricone energy to it. It's with the whistling. Not to mention, there's just a horn solo that goes really hard for a short time.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Then you got the guitar chords, and it's just a really, really good... This is a really good song, honestly. This is the only song on the soundtrack where I'm like, yeah, this one's legitimately a jam.
Oh, yeah. It's the best, like, musical piece in the game, I think. It is so good. There are some other ones that are like, they're really catchy and they're really memorable for this game, but like melodies and interplay between instruments and all that, there's some real quality to this one for sure. I totally agree.
Yeah, it's a good song. This is the one that I always come back to when I think of this soundtrack. But from there, let's finish it off with critical track number 5. Your Work is Done. So there are 2 credits themes in Pokemon Snap, which I did not know until this year when we did the episode, because I just sort of never paid attention that close, I guess. There was one for if you have not 100% completed the Pokemon report, and there's one for if you have. And this is the one that plays when you have. And, I mean, it's just a slight rearrangement of the music for Rainbow Cloud, which is the main reason why I think I gave it a leg up. Like, as much as I think Rainbow Cloud kind of sucks, it's important for the game at least.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Like, it's not a good level. It is the most boring final level of a video game that has ever been made. But I do kind of like the music a little bit. Like, just it's very repetitive. There's not much to it. It's the dun 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 dun, and that's most of the song.
And it's really zen, relaxing in that way.
Mm-hmm. which, again, much like Beach, that's the kind of vibe that Pokemon Snap, for the most part, tries to get you into in the first place. But, if you've never played Pokemon Snap, in Rainbow Cloud, there's one Pokemon in the whole level, and it's Mew, and you have to do a bunch of extra work to get a single picture of Mew, and then it still goes for the length of a full level.
Yeah. It's not great. You gotta throw Pester Balls while it's moving to break its shield, and then try to get it in quite a moment to hit it with the Pester Ball while it's trying to get back. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's really dumb. But this is a very prevalent song on the soundtrack, so it deserved to be pointed out for that reason alone.
Like you, I didn't know that there were two. I had always 100% completed the game before rolling credits, so yeah.
I don't think I'd ever heard the non-100% completion one ever. Which is really fun. Meanwhile, we got some tracks on the cutting room floor. Peter, you've got a couple. Hit me with them.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the stage that is known as Cave. This is the 5th stage, the one right before Valley. What a nice, chilling, relaxing atmosphere. There's enough going with the instrumentation that it's kind of echoey. You get the reverb, but it also has these damp sounding instruments and pads to it. I think it really exemplifies the environment of a damp cave perfectly. And you really get that about there's something mysterious going on here, but you're also descending into the darkness and you don't know what you'll find.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really cool piece. And whenever I think of the cave, I think of Flying Pikachu, and screw Flying Pikachu.
Heavy agreement on that, though I think about the fact that the Pokemon sign in the cave is a Mewtwo, and that makes no sense.
You're right. It doesn't. When you're going after Mew. Okay. All right. Jeez. Yeah. The cave is just a really cool level, and it's a good one. I'm getting PTSD flashbacks. Try throwing Pester Balls up at Zubats that are bothering Pikachu.
Very fast Zubats too, might I add.
It's a total crapshoot. It's ridiculous. The other one I have on the cutting room floor is much more fun. It's Gallery. So this is you going through your collection of best images for each Pokemon. It's a fun little trumpet melody, but the big star of the show is do-do-do-do-do-do. Ooh.
Yeah.
It's just so good.
I like this song a lot. It's got a nice little groove to it, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It's much like one of my cutting room floor tracks, where it's far more groovy than it should be for where it shows up.
Oh, yeah, it's much better than it has any reason being, for sure.
For me, my two tracks on the cutting room floor, the first is Volcano. I think this is a close second to Valley. Well, not close second. I think it's second to Valley, but not that close. Honestly, when I re-listen to this song, I feel like I could hear this in a volcano area in a straight up big RPG.
Sure.
Almost.
Yeah.
It's a very simple tune, but it's really neat, and I enjoy it quite a bit.
Shout out to the bass that's going. It definitely gives like that lava bubbling feel.
And shout out to throwing a Charmeleon into a pit of lava.
Hitting him with the ball to have him fall into it. Or throwing the Pester ball into volcano pits randomly so that Growlithe and Arcanine can pop out.
That's another one of those, like, playground gossip ones. Yeah, for sure. My other track on the cutting room floor is Pokémon Album. This is my track for this week where I'm like, hey, do a rap over this one.
Yeah.
Because it feels kind of fitting.
But then it'll make you sleepy too.
Again, way more groovy than it honestly deserves to be.
Oh yeah, I don't need a happy, drum beat going with music box meant for lullabies, but okay, here we go.
Yeah, and it works pretty well. This is a pretty fun song. I like it a lot. I wish I knew more about where Mimori went after this game.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of do hope she's still working in games, but I couldn't find any evidence to say whether or not she was.
But yeah, this one plays where you have your 4 best pictures that you've selected, and it's like showing off those 4. Yeah, it's a good one.
So, what will I never forget about Pokemon Snap? It's a game that sure exists. I can't believe it's 21 years old.
What? No.
This game could drink now legally. That's nuts.
I could play this whole game drunk. I know that's for sure.
Yeah, same, honestly. That sounds fun. Oh man, I kind of want to do that now. Can you imagine trying to get that Magikarp into the Mankey while drunk?
Oh my god, yeah. That'd be ridiculous. I almost I'm picturing like playing it with my girlfriend. I'm like, so what you gotta do is take pictures of the Pikachu as he's playing with the Diglett, and then you lead him over to that yellow egg, and then you play the Poke Flute, and he'll shock the egg, and boop, pops out Zapdos Electric Bird.
And after that, you gotta make sure you leave the other one so it makes a shadow, but it looks like a pincer, so you want to take a picture of that.
Or shoot the Smog because it kind of looks like a coughing.
That sounds fun, actually. I kind of want to do that now. I think that it sure is a game that exists. It is a game that I look back on fondly as a child, having played it a lot. Going back to it as an adult, it feels more like a really neat sort of curio from a time that seems so foreign now of Pokemania. And I think that's honestly worth something. I think that this is one of the games that has the benefit of, while it might not look the best compared to some games that come out today, and in fact, the new Pokemon Snap game looks fantastic from the little they showed us. This is probably among one of the better looking 64 games there is.
Yeah.
And its gameplay doesn't really have a chance to age poorly because it's so simple. Honestly, if you're looking for a 64 game to go back and play, this is probably the one. I think the biggest takeaway I have, though, having played it in the year of our Lord 2020, is that I'm mostly just looking forward to seeing what a modern take is going to look like. That's the most exciting part about this new game, is that, like, we made all the jokes about the center of the frame. That's where it has to go. and all those things, and, like, the poses and the size, and that's all really finicky, but that's because this game was made in 1999. And now they could make like an AI that has a straight up algorithm that can look at your photos and figure out how good they are as actual photos. And that sounds neat.
Yeah, I think that's the one hope that you're right. The scoring mechanic needs to be a whole lot better. But in a way, I'm kind of concerned that a sequel will not capture the same kind of magic, because now you're talking about pulling from 8 generations of Pokemon, and that's a lot. That can get to be too much. Do they add too many levels? There is something really nice about the simplicity of Pokemon Snap on Nintendo 64 that I'm a little concerned that a sequel may feel a little bloated. But you're right. I feel like if the scoring system is much better, if you can tell that, the animations are going to be a lot better, if it's not clear to see when the animation is switching over to a special pose or what have you, there's definitely some potential there.
So let me ask you this to round this out, to end it. What would you prefer for the new game? Would you prefer level-based or open world? Like it gives you a buggy that you can control and you can drive around taking pictures of Pokemon. Which would you prefer? Because I'm kind of split between the two. I think having it being level-based is better because they can set up cooler scenes that way. But also, just riding around an island full of Pokemon sounds kind of fun.
Yeah, I can see the pros and cons to each. I agree with you. However, when you're talking about new Snap, I think still keep it on rails. There is something simple about the mechanics. Once you start opening up to open world, you start, I think, almost in a way narrowing the base of players who can appreciate it. There is a simplicity to, all right, you're going no matter what. You can sometimes slow down if you get that ability on your 0-1. Maybe it'll be 0-2, and then it'll be a weird Kirby boss. I don't know. But yeah, I think there is the simplicity of don't worry about the movement. You worry about your camera lens, and you worry about that only, and we'll take care of the rest of the movement. I do understand and agree that there is cool potential of you being free roaming and all that, but yeah, let them set up those moments for you to look at, locate, and capture.
Mm-hmm.
Well, rail shooters, these games certainly are, and really good soundtracks to go with them, like some unexpected jams and bops. Granted, they are a little older now, but they're definitely good games to talk about, and I'm glad that we did. So that will do it for us this week on Original Soundchat. You can find me on Twitter at PeteSpeakeasy. Joe is over at Thedobaga. The video version of the show is on the Rhymes with Asia YouTube channel, also at rhymeswithasia.com, but it's that MP3 podcast version that you want. Hosted by Anonymous Dinosaur over at anondino.squarespace.com. That's also where you'll find Joe's other podcast masterpieces. So you can find the podcast on podcast services all around the globe. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, YouTube Music, whatever it's called, and even on Spotify. Not only do we have the podcast episode feed on Spotify, but we have a Spotify playlist where if we talk about a video game, music, track, piece, and it's on Spotify, it's going on that big, ever-growing playlist. Well, these are Nintendo games this week, so I'm guessing no dice this week, Joe, on any new additions.
How did you know?
It just is what it is. We put out Best of 2018 on our bonus tracks. It's the same podcast feed still, but you had a little bonus episode this past week if you checked your podcast feed. Best of 2018 was fun to put together, and Best of 2017 is all ready to record. So hopefully it won't be too long before you hear that one already and edited. Joe, who are we talking about next week?
I will be talking about Daniel Olsen.
I will be talking about Ryo Nagamatsu. All right, Joe, let's play us out.
So, we mentioned Insane in the Rain music all the way back at the beginning of the episode. It turns out, while I was looking for the cover to use for the transition, he did, alongside artist Ro Panaganti, an entire Pokemon Snap medley. Like, we're talking an 11-minute Pokemon Snap medley. This is going to be a clip of the part of the medley that is Valley, because, again, it's the best song in the game, so why not?
It's a really cool cover. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening this week on Original Sound Chat. We'll see you next time. Take care.